We are live. We are live. Hello. We're a little bit late. We're relying on Baker Wi-Fi, but welcome to Shooting the Shit. We haven't done one of these for a while, girls, have we? Because we missed 2 weeks ago because Hannah and I were having a familial crisis, and then so we're back. Familial. So we're like I think we had about 4 weeks off, haven't we? So it's very good to be back. Talking today, we've pushed aside the subject that we did have planned. We were going to talk about the International Day about transphobia and transphobia, homophobia, all the rest of it. We were going to talk about diversity in the workplace. We will still talk about that. We've just rescheduled it to a later date. But today we are here so that we can have a little bit of a rant about what is going on with abortion rights around the world, because quite frankly, it's appalling and everybody is very cross. And I'm so cross, I am banging my fist on the table. That's how cross I am. This abortion situation is horrendous. So we've pushed aside what we were going to talk about. We've put this in basically so we can all just have a little bit of a rant. But before we go there, first of all, Hannah Weinhold, what's your name? Where'd you come from? And tell me a good thing that's happened to you this last week or in the last 4 weeks.
I was going to say this week, I'm Hannah Weinhold. I am from Grove Traffic. And a good thing that's happened to me is I am I'm playing netball tonight. They've allowed me onto the team as a stand-in, which I'm always very excited about. And I've got new trainers.
I knew you were going to tell us about your new trainers and tell us about what your new trainers have done, because they're not just nice shoesies, are they? They've made your heart work better. They've made your arse work better. Like they're the most magical trainers ever, aren't they?
What trainers are these?
No, they're not. She's being facetious. So I'll tell you. They've got a specially designed store.
Reese's there on Amazon, like, wait, get me those fucking trainers.
Look, do they still work when I'm sat down all day? I'm not sure.
Yeah. When everyone bought those flip-flops thinking that they'd make their ass look like two peaches, and actually, like, no, they're just nice. They're just nice new trainers that is going to make my feet feel good and let me run like the wind.
Woohoo, marvellous. And Reese, what's your name? Where'd you come from? And have you got trainers that make your ass better?
My arse is fantastic, whatever I wear, so I don't care, mate.
Yes, it is.
No, it's more my knees, my old lady knees. I have to myself with, so yeah. I don't have anything good that's happened that I can think of in the last 4 weeks, to be honest. It's just kind of...
Really?
No, it sounds very good.
Yeah.
No,
you've not even had like a nice sausage roll or anything.
I've had a nice sausage. We'll move on.
Do you have a nice sausage now?
Hey, I have kind of reintroduced myself into the Greg sausage roll, which is both horrendous.
I wondered where we were going then.
Yeah. It could have gone anywhere, Hannah. Yeah, so
that's why they're in my mind, because I had one of the Greg's vegan sausage rolls yesterday for the first time in absolutely ages, and I had forgotten just how bloody amazing a sausage roll is, quite frankly. Vegan or not.
I think I could just live with the pastry rather than like the sausage. I'm not that bothered about sausage. I like the pastry.
I've not had one for years and years, and because we worked out the calories that were in them many moons ago, and we've not touched them since. And I nailed it that fast. I actually like choked on some of the flaky pastry.
Oh, the flaky pastry! That's so good, man. You inhale it.
I inhaled it. Like what the actual fuck, right? That says a lot, don't it? So anyway, let's move on.
Well, we were talking the other day. We were talking the other day about how our children have essentially been raised on sausage rolls and cartons of juice. So you know they're all still alive. It's absolutely fine. Right. Anyway, moving on. We're here to talk about abortion, and I have a feeling we might get a little bit cross. Obviously, unless you've been living under a rock for the last few days, you will be aware of what is going on in America. Now, America has, a long tradition of being a sort of anti-abortion country. So it's not really a surprise. But I think that the fact that, Roe versus Wade, which was the legislation that was set down in 1973, I think, which said that abortion in America should be legal for the last kind of 50 years, various pieces of legislation and campaigns in various states have chipped away at that fundamental piece of legislative law to the point where it is now really fucking hard if you're a woman in America to get an abortion. And now, in the last week, a document was leaked from the Supreme Court that basically said they're looking at overturning it entirely and going back to a situation where abortion is illegal. Now, we think, I think as a feminist, that over the last kind of 20 years-ish, 30 years-ish, we've made great strides towards abortion being freely available everywhere. But when you actually look at some of the statistics, and I will read you some of the statistics in a minute, we really haven't, have we? Just what do you feel? Do you feel like we're going forwards as a world, or do you feel like we're going backwards on abortion? Rish, what do you think?
I think how do you even put that into words? Do you know what I mean? Because it's so terrible that we're even having to have this conversation. Like we have the privilege of being in the UK and it's not affecting us. But it's what the whole, point of it, the whole kind of conversation around it is just, horrific, to be honest. So to answer your question, clearly backwards, especially for those, that live in the States. So, and I think the biggest thing is that it's that because it's, such a prominent country, in all conversations for all things, I'm not saying that if it was somewhere else, it would be okay. It's not that. It's more that they are front and center of all the things all the time. And for something as fundamental as this to having to be discussed, I think is, yeah, well, that says it all anyway.
I think it's really interesting what you say there, though, about we're sort of immune in this country, and I think we have a bit of complacency in that we feel like we are, and I think we did an episode, didn't we, last year where we had Mina Hanna's Auntie Jennifer on talking about second wave feminism in the 70s, and I think very much they fought a lot of these battles, and it was like, okay, abortion legalized, next, what's the next thing? Let's move on, and I think we got a little bit complacent in thinking, okay, we've done that. That's legalized here in the UK. Let's move on to the next thing. And yet, every time this happens, it opens up that conversation again, doesn't it? It's not about UK law, but I've noticed on my Facebook feeds, so many people have been talking about this. Most of them positive, because I live in a nice little echo chamber these days. But of course, there are some people then commenting, going, "Well, actually, it isn't right. And what if this happens? And what if women are out there murdering babies?" And I do feel like it's really easy for us here in the UK to sit back and go, well, we're sort of all right. We sorted that. But actually, we might not be. There's not, how do we know that we're safe? Hannah?
Well, yeah.
I think the thing about America and in this country, in the UK, our news and our society is very American centric. So I think it's important that we don't get caught up in that and think that that is the world. But what happens in America does impact us so much culturally and in a way politically because of the cultural impact. And I think, we do need to kind of look at what's happening in America. But I think the fact that it is so high profile, I suppose, so jarring, is because they position themselves as the land of the free, home of the brave, kind of protectors of freedom and liberty. And yet they regulate things like what a woman can do with her body. And it just feels so very one-sided that they are not taking into account the man's role in this, into account the health of the woman. It's just, the kind of life of the fetus. And it's just one voice that's giving this argument. And if we look at the Supreme Court, who have the possibility to overturn Roe versus Wade, they are white men, essentially. And I think the fact that it's so imbalanced, and obviously because Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the soul, has gone. Like, we all kind of knew this was going to happen. So I think that's why it's so high profile and why it's so jarring. But we are going backwards, and that Roe versus Wade was put in the 70s. It was a case that was won in the 70s and outlawed abortion in many states, but protests have never stopped, but the fact that now it's in contention is enormous. We have definitely gone backwards. But I think and I'm aware now that I'm just soliloquizing, but I think as a trend, kind of Western world has gone back towards more conservative values and more extremist views. And if we look at kind of France and Marie Le Pen and where else is it that they've got a really kind of awful right wing fucking
Poland,
yeah. Turkey, there's a lot at England. There's a lot of awful places with some awful right wing governments in power that have got some very fucking right wing beliefs and rhetoric going on.
Yeah, and I think that, the interesting thing there is, Roe versus Wade was, I think, 1973, but that was fought on a constitutional basis because obviously America is very, very wedded to its constitution. And that was fought on that basis. So they weren't necessarily saying, women should have a right to an abortion, a woman should have the right to choose what happens to her own body, all the rest of it. That was obviously part of the argument, but it was fundamentally won on the principle that you can't apply a constitutional rule differently to women than you can to men. So i.e. you can't say that men have autonomy over their own bodies and women don't. And that was what it was successful upon. So, again, we think like, we've made these massive strides and abortion is legal. Actually, that was purely a kind of legal argument that was made at that time, that now that's why they're chipping away at it. And but you're absolutely right. It's this thing of it's white men, again, telling women what they can and can't do with their bodies. We're not saying to men, if you get a woman pregnant, you've got to stay with her, you've got to financially support the child. We in theory we say you financially support them, but it's not, let's take 50% of their income off them now to make sure it's done. There are ways that we could do it, aren't there? So it's that chipping away that I think is so dangerous and so insidious, because again you don't notice every little change, you don't fight every little legal ramification, and then all of a sudden we sit back and 30-40 years later we go, oh my god, they've managed to take it all away from us. So
yeah. And I think when you look at like the map of where abortion, where there's no restrictions, where there's restrictions on it, it can only be done to save their physical health, or where there's the risk to the woman, the vast majority of the world has got restrictions on abortion. There's only
I have some stats here on that.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's quite. You've led me very nicely into my stats. It's in actual fact 40% of women in the world of childbearing age live in a country where abortion is illegal. So 40% of women of childbearing age don't have access to abortions. Now, if we take all of the pregnancies that happen around the world, 3 out of 10 pregnancies worldwide, in total of all pregnancies, whether they were wanted or not, 3 out of 10 will end in abortion. 6 out of 10 unwanted pregnancies will end in abortion. So unplanned pregnancies, for whatever the reason, will end in abortion. So that means that 25 million unsafe abortions are carried out each year. Essentially, abortion will get pregnant because they are raped, or the condom split, or they were drunk, or they were abused by their uncle. A million reasons as to why women fall pregnant. And whether or not abortion is there legally, if it's not there legally and it's not there safely, they will find another way of doing it, and that will then be an unsafe backstreet abortion, and then that is 10 times more risky than the risk of childbirth. Whereas if an abortion is carried out safely and legally, it's one of the safest medical procedures that is available. So we can prevent so much. I mean, let's talk about kind of death and medical reasons first. On the basis of keeping women healthy and alive, it's worth it, isn't it?
It is. I do there is an argument, and I'm curious to see kind of what you guys think about this. There's an argument that kind of when you abort a child on the grounds of disability, people that live with disabilities sometimes say or make the argument, well, are you saying that I don't deserve to live? What do you guys think about that?
Reece, do you want to go there first?
I can't have an opinion on it because I don't have any like insight into it. I don't have any experience of it. I can't possibly comment, one way or the other, quite frankly. It's a discussion to be had, but I'm not qualified to have it. So I think that takes us into a whole different conversation, really. But I think it's, like Rachel said, it's about the abortions are still going to happen. It's about, the fact whether they're done safely or not, and to me, it comes back to that, really, and the fact that there's seems to be zero consequence for how they've got to that situation in the first place, it takes two people. It's as simple as that. It takes two people.
It takes two. Yeah, I think that the point there you said, Reece, about you're not qualified. I think that's the kind of key point, isn't it? Unless you are the woman in that position, it's nobody else's right to say. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. Having an abortion. I have had an abortion, so I can talk about this from experience. And you making a decision based on what is best for you at that specific time, nobody else. You're not making a judgment on whether somebody's deserves to live more than another, or this disabled condition is right. It's based on the mother, and it's whether or not the mother wants a baby at that time, is in a financial position to bring up a baby, has the emotional ability, or is in a relationship or whatever to bring up a baby. It has other plans for what they want to do with their life at that time, and it's not for anybody else. It's not for us as women to comment on anybody else's decision as to whether or not they have an abortion. It just as much as it's not the right of any man to comment on whether or not we have the right to have an abortion. It's an innately, and it has to be absolutely just that one woman's decision at that one time, doesn't it? It can't. Nobody else's opinion can come into play.
And I think as well, it's oftentimes it's not a value judgment on whether or not this fetus deserves to grow into a fully fledged life and have rights. It's not about that. It's about, can the mother, or does the mother want to give that person a life, and can they carry out a decent upbringing for that person, and like raising, fortunately, I don't know from first-hand experience, but raising children with learning difficulties or disabilities has got to put an extra kind of level of impact on your life. And make motherhood.
It becomes your life, doesn't it? I mean, depending on how severely or otherwise a child is disabled. But if you do have a very severely disabled child, that is what your life is going to become. And some people are in a position, mentally, emotionally, financially, where they can deal with that, and some women are absolutely fucking not. Some women might have their own mental health issues, and if they're if the next 20 years of their life has to go on hold so they can care for somebody else, if they decide that's
a lifelong thing.
Well, however long. And if they decide at that point, I can't do that, that's not saying somebody who has that disability deserves to die or shouldn't have lived. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with that one woman's decision on how she wants to or can live a life. There's a comment there that said that I don't know who it is because your name hasn't come up, so apologies, but it says that they wouldn't be here and their kids wouldn't have a mum if they didn't have that choice, and that's it. Sometimes it comes down to it might not be a physical risk to the baby, it might not be a physical risk to you, it might be a mental risk. It might be you saying, I'm not in a position at this point in my life to raise a baby, and that's absolutely fine. And at that point we should be able to say, I don't want to do this. We can do it with everything else, can't we? Literally everything else in our lives we can say, I don't want to do this now. I can't do this now.
We can, as Western middle class women with means and education, but I think a lot of women can't, and this is almost like the ultimate fucking insult. Like, it's your own body, it is your future, and regardless of the kind of laws and the morality of it, men can walk away from it, and statistically they do walk away from it, but it's the woman that's kind of left with that impact on her body and her life. And even if you give the child up for adoption, pregnancy is not easy, and it changes your body forever, and you might not necessarily want that.
It also, I mean, let's look at that as a system. I mean, that's the argument in America. Let's give the baby up to a family that wants it more than you do. But actually, the care system in America is broken, and in most countries, it's horrendous. It's not that your baby's going to go and have this idyllic life with these rich parents who are going to take it to Disneyland every year and buy it a bike every. That's not what happens. It's going to go and live in a children's home, be moved around from foster care to, if they find a nice home and a nice upbringing, then brilliant. But a lot of the time that's not what happens. And so we're just putting a care, if we're genuinely going to say abortion is illegal, then we've got to, as societies, put our money where our mouth is and say, all right, then let's have proper social care and let's have proper children's services.
And I think as well, proper maternity care, because I think there are lots of places in the world, and not just like, third world countries. There are lots of places in the world where having a baby, giving birth, like going into labor, is incredibly risky. And, and especially so for like non-white people, it's incredibly risky, or poor people, like who have the fucking audacity to be poor. And also, let's not forget, in America, it costs a fucking fortune to have a baby because there's no bloody health service.
And there's no time off work, no paid maternity leave or anything. I think that's. I want to. You've touched on another point that I wanted to raise, and that's the sort of diversity issue. So for trans women or people who are gender dysphoric, they're not in the body that they believe. They might fall pregnant for a multitude of reasons. And you then say, if you are, trans, and we're then going to say, all right, well, you're pregnant. Well, no, you've got to have the baby. Now, not only is that a phenomenal mental drain on somebody who doesn't believe that they are a woman, and so going through a pregnancy is massively traumatic, but also apparently the discrimination that they will then face going through the healthcare service, it is phenomenal, and that can set their own mental health back. It can set the transition back donkey's years, and then again you've got a child that is being brought into this situation with a parent who is massively fucked up, with no support system and no social services. So, women, apparently trans people, there was a statistic and I can't now remember what it was, but trans people face more poor service and more badly done too, putting it mildly. But then if you add colour into that mix again,
service, actually.
Yes, this is very poor. Yes, but if you then add colour into the mix, so if they're not white, basically, that then multiplies, and the discrimination that they feel or are subjected to is even more, compounded, and it just makes the whole situation 10 times worse. So again, we've got to think about it. We imagine, don't we? And I think this is what lawmakers and politicians and stuff have in their head. They just have Sally the slag, who's gone out on a Friday night and got herself knocked up and doesn't want to take the consequences because she's irresponsible. That's who they picture. But actually, there's a multitude of people who end up pregnant and don't want to be, who are just never even given a voice or considered.
Can anybody think of a good argument against abortion? Because I was reading up on this and I can't find a single one.
A good argument against it?
Yeah, like a good pro-life argument that they're putting forward.
Well, I mean, their argument is that you're killing a baby, aren't you? I mean, that's what they say. That once that fetus has a heartbeat, it's a baby.
That's a very decisive question, because that's the whole point of the discussion, right? It's the fact that the people are pro-life are going to have, that pro-life and believe that that's a genuine, conversation and side to the argument. And I think what
scientifically, it's been rebuked. So, what is a good argument?
But you can't argue science.
So this is what I mean. Like, there's 1,000,001 ridiculous arguments, like Roman Catholics, every sperm is sacred. Like, that's not a good argument. Like, you're killing an unborn baby.
That's according to you. That's the whole point of an argument. That's according to you.
Yeah.
Like, somebody else that has that opposing view, to them, it's a valid argument.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah, like I suppose. So then are we saying that all the arguments are valid?
But again, this is the problem, isn't it? Because it's such an emotive subject. And this, I mean, it's like all of the sort of culture wars that are going on at the moment, that they're around really emotive, personal things to people. And when you actually dig down, there's always a reason as to why somebody, they don't just believe things because they're batshit. There will be a genuine reason at the core of it that as to why they hold that belief. And as Rish quite rightly says, to those people that believe life begins at conception and that is a sacred life, then yeah, of course, if you believe that somebody having an abortion is murdering a baby, then of course you're going to do everything in your power to stop it, aren't you? Who wants to murder babies? Even I don't want to murder babies.
I know. I think, like even you,
even me.
Murder boots, rara.
Yeah, go on, Rish.
What I was going to say, there's 2 points that have come up in that those conversations there, and I think it's firstly back to what we very first started off with the conversation, is that actually the initial Roe v. Wade, wasn't won off the back of it being, good for us to have that choice. It was done because it was essentially a legal loophole that someone found and was able to get to, and therefore was okay. So to me, it's like, actually, it's never been okay. It was just the fact that there are some people that have, identified something that said, well, no, you can't apply it to one and apply it, not apply it to the other kind of thing, or vice versa. I think, we've touched on it actually in one of these conversations before about, even in the UK, that I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but there are, childbirth, stats for people of colour and things like that. We have issues here already.
Yeah, we do.
In terms of education, in terms of it being safe, or safer, for whatever reason, in the UK. So I think there's so many things to kind of, unpick or to get involved in or to talk about, and I think back to the point, we look and think, okay, we're okay in the UK, but actually we're not. We still have a lot of, conversations and a lot that needs to be done in terms of, putting our bodies first, our health first, all of those kind of things. I think, yeah, it seems like it's okay, but actually this whole point just brings everything to the forefront, and makes you, well, actually, back to, again, what Rachel said, it's, are we okay? And actually, it just takes a whole bunch of men to go into a room, decide that something's going to change, and all of a sudden it's gone. And that is the bullshit, isn't it? It's like horrendous that's been allowed to happen. And even if it's like, bit by bit, it's the fact that that's, something's taken away, without anyone realizing, quite frankly.
And that's why I think
the recourse.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so important that we have to keep having these conversations, because you're right, it's so easy to think like, oh, our mums and our aunties sorted this in the 70s, abortion sorted, move on. And it's not. It can really easily be taken away from us. But also, you're absolutely right, Rish, there is so much inequality in maternal health care in this country. Black women are so much more, I think it's twice as likely to die. It's a phenomenally terrifying statistic. From giving birth as white women, and then there's so much wrapped up in that. So we absolutely have our own issues, and I think if we don't keep discussing women's rights, maternal rights, all the rest of it, these things will slide, and it can be taken away from us, because America is making massive back steps. I think is it Nigeria? There's an African country recently that have taken a massive backward step. I think Argentina as well, massive backward step. All of if you go on the Amnesty International website, by the way, there's some great resources about which countries have legalized it and which haven't. But there's more than just America that are going backwards in terms of allowing women rights to safe and free abortions. So this is we can't just sit there and go, we're all right in this country, we're fine, we sorted it, because we ain't. Well, there we go. That's it. That's time. And we've really cheered ourselves up there. Go on, Hannah. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I think that's a really nice point to end. I was just going to say, I wonder if they will replace it with anything, because it's only ending abortion. It's only going to end abortion in 22 states. And to be fair, it is already not on the cards in other states, but I do wonder if they're going to replace it with something.
I don't know. I mean, the problem that they've got, as you said, they've chipped away at it in quite a few. I mean, Texas has got the heartbeat law, as they call it. So, if you don't have an abortion before 6 weeks, you can't have one anyway. And most women not even found out till the 6 weeks, till a month, 6 weeks pregnant, do they? So, I mean, that's ridiculous. But the upshot is that, if you're white and you're rich and you're well educated, you will find an abortion somewhere, and probably a reasonably safe one. But if you are poor, or you are a woman of color, or you have mental health issues, or you're trans, you haven't got access to that, and you're going to find an unhealthy an unsafe backstreet abortion, and you're going to be dead. So they either ban it everywhere, or they're just making it. But even then, as we've already discussed, you can't ban it, can you? Women will find ways.
But also, big up to Ireland, who recently legalized it. So there are some progress being made somewhere.
There is progress being made, and I think it's really important that we remember that as well, because you're absolutely right. There are some countries that have made massive strides forward in making abortion illegal. And again, there was an African country, and I really should remember which one it was, that have just made it. I think it might be Africa, but I think it might be Somalia.
That's your imperialist attitude, that, Rachel.
I know, yes, yeah, that just that small province.
One of them.
Africa.
Yeah.
Anyway, some people are legalizing it, so it's not all bad. Reach, final word. Yeah.
I don't have one after that. I've got nothing to say.
You just put your head in your hands and that's it.
That's it. I think I'm out on that.
Yeah. Hannah, final thought.
I think let's not let things slip through our fingers on these shows while we're looking at other shows.
Yeah. Absolutely. We've got to keep talking about it. We've got to keep, and I think one of the things we've got to do is remove the stigma. If you have had an abortion, you should be able to talk about that, particularly amongst your girlfriends. But it should be okay. We should be making it okay for this to be a reasonable course of action, like the morning after pill, like using a condom. Let's just talk about
like having a miscarriage, like it's
absolutely. Okay. And that's it. Brilliant. There we go. Thank you very much for those of you who have watched live and left us comments. Really, really good to see some of those comments coming up. If you are watching this on catch up, you can still comment. We will still see it. We will still engage with you. If you are listening to this as a podcast, please leave us a review and rate us and tell somebody and all those other things, because it helps us. It dead does. And if you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe below, guys. And leave us a comment as well. We will still see it. That's it. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, girls. Wait.